welcome back to our culinary cannabis and cannabis beverage exploration here today. I'm Rachel Burkons with The Clever Root, and I'm joined by Manndie Tingler of the Women's Canna Awards, and we're gonna dive into the world of infused food and drink and how to do this at home and all the fun things associated with that.
I can't wait. This is my favorite topic in weed.
We are gonna have so much fun over here. So everybody come join us at the stage. We're gonna talk through a bunch of fun things, mention some of our favorite products.
Yes.
Make some recommendations.
I have a long list.
Me too. All right, well, let's just dive right in. Oh, my clicker is not working. So we'll just get started without it. Thank you, tech support. What is the thank you. Sorry, I probably didn't turn it on. What is The Clever Root? The Clever Root is a culinary cannabis destination designed to teach you all that you need to know about how to eat and drink your weed, because there are a lot of different ways to do that. And so today we want to just kind of walk through what some of those methods are and make some recommendations. The Clever Root was actually a print publication that was available nationwide from 2015 to 2018. And I just recently have been working to relaunch it. I'm super excited. There's a sign with a QR code back there. Please sign it, scan it, and sign up for our newsletter so you can join us and learn all things culinary cannabis.
That's where I'll be after this.
That's right. Yeah, head over there, signing up. Okay. So I think that before we dive too deep into the details, there are two broad categories of ways to make infusions we want to explore today. One is the DIY method. This is where you're going to have to read, you're going to have to learn, you're going to have to measure, you're going to have to do math. That's the part that I don't like, the math part.
The science of cooking.
The science of cooking. Combine not only the science of cooking, but with the science of cannabis. It's like really sciencey stuff. It's not that complicated though, which is the beauty. You do need to know what you're doing. And then there's another method, which is use what's available in the marketplace and make some edibles with that. So we're gonna kind of broadly talk through those two techniques today. And so how do you make your own infusions? This is something that there are a lot of different steps for, or a lot of different ways you can do this, but there's three basic sort of things you need to do. First, you're going to need to decarboxylate, but we call it decarb for short because decarboxylate doesn't really.
It's a little long.
It is. I'm going to decarboxylate this cannabis. But what does that mean? Basically, when you have a plant that's growing in the field, what is occurring in that plant is THCA and CBDA. That is a non-active form. It's the acid form of those cannabinoids. So when you heat those cannabinoids, which you do every time you light a joint or every time you light a bowl, you're converting the THCA into THC. You need to do that step before you make your edibles. This is a really important step that people kind of forget or don't know about.
It either works too good or not at all.
Yeah, and so there's definitely some science to this in terms of temperature. We'll have full recipes on thecleverroot.com, but essentially what you're looking for is around 225 degrees for about an hour. If you go too high, you're gonna actually burn off those cannabinoids. So you don't wanna leave it in there forever, and you don't wanna get it too hot. So that first step to decarboxylate, activate the cannabinoids in your flower is the most important step, because if you skip that step, you're not going to get high. It's just not going to work. So
all that work and none of the glory.
and literally no payoff. So definitely make sure that you are decarbing your flower before you make any at-home infusions. Second step is going to be to do that infusion. And as you see behind me, I have 5 different infusion techniques there. We have a sous vide machine. We have a stovetop pan. We have a mason jar that you can stick in the oven. We have a crock pot, And we have an infusion device. So that blue infusion device in the middle, that's called a Levo. That will actually also do the decarbing for you. So that's an all-in-one push a button and go setting. The other ones, you're gonna definitely need to do that decarbing on your own, but there are a lot of different ways to do that. And so those are all gonna make you oil-based infusions, butters, infused oils, lots and lots of different techniques there. In the initial capsule content for the Clever Root, we actually decided we wanted to find out which of those 5 techniques was the most effective at capturing cannabinoids. So we decarbed everything in one batch. So we were working with one batch of flower, and we came up with our little scientific experiment, and we made 5 different butters that we sent off to a testing lab. And we had all of those butters tested for potency to see what was the most effective at capturing those cannabinoids. Do you have a guess as to which was the most effective?
I don't actually. I'm thinking I'm like the science of all of this, and I'm like,
which
one?
Each of these, I've heard a lot of really great things about, like the sous vide method. That's a really great method because it's slow and low. It's a water bath. It's basically the same as the Instapot. But what actually ended up being the most effective at capturing those cannabinoids was the plain old stovetop method. So you can just you don't need to spend $200.
No fancy devices needed.
Get a mason jar and a pot, and you're going to be just fine. So you can read more about all of that at thecleverroot.com, but I think that type of science and understanding of how you as an at-home baker can really capitalize on this beautiful plant and make sure that your infusions are high quality, that's a really fun way to kind of go down that rabbit hole. And then once you have your infused product, whether that's a butter, an oil, a sugar, a salt, because of course there are alcohol-based extractions as well that are water soluble, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Once you have that, you need to integrate that into the recipe. For the most part, that's super, super easy. But again, going back to the temperature that we were talking about before, you don't want to make an infused oil or a cake and then stick it in the oven at 400 degrees for 2 hours, because you're going to denature all those cannabinoids. All of that hard work that you did in those first 2 steps will be lost. So as you're thinking about how am I going to actually use this butter, how am I going to use this oil, you need to think about what the final recipe is. That said, if you're baking cookies, something that's usually around 350 degrees, that's fine, because the oven may be 350 degrees. The inside of your cookie is not. So you're going to be okay with most standard baking recipes. Where you're going to start to have some loss is when you're putting things on broil, throwing things on high heat, or cooking them for a really, really, really long time. So keep all of those 3 things in mind as you go through this at-home infusion process.
Yeah, I tried to infuse a turkey once. I really tried, and I was so disappointed with the outcome because, you know, you cook a turkey fairly low, right?
Yeah.
But it's for like a really long time. And so I thought I was really like being clever. I'm like, I'm going to infuse this butter. I'm going to just like slather this bitch.
I'm going to baste this bird with some weed butter.
All of the weed butter. And then, you know, it was a beautiful turkey.
Yeah. But nobody got high.
Yeah, it was a little danky.
You know what would have been, so, you know, in that case, let's say you want to make your infused Thanksgiving dinner, stir it into mashed potatoes, stir it into the gravy, do things like that. And you know what's also really, they're the add-ons. And then as a consumer who also wants to know your dose, you have more control over it that way. So instead of infusing a huge core component of your dish, consider doing the sauces and the accoutrement.
Salad dressings, whipped cream. That's a good one.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, we'll get into some examples of how you can use these types of products. Let's see. Here's actually some of those examples in action. I can't see. So, all right, behind me, we have a cannabis-infused coffee. This was created by my partner, Christina Wong of Fruit and Flower. She's my partner in the Clever Root. And she infused the milk for this recipe. So you can infuse milks, you can infuse creams. They go through basically the same infusion process that we just walked through. Anything with a higher fat percentage, so like a heavy cream, is going to be a little bit more effective. I would not recommend like non-fat milk for your infused coffee.
Probably almond milk wouldn't be a really successful one either.
No, get something super fatty.
It has to have fatty lipids to it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's a really good example. You can infuse, and then of course, once you have that infused milk or cream, you can make whipped cream. You can make all sorts of yummy things with it. You can make infused ice cream.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, like you can go crazy. That's actually, I think, one of the most important things for people to understand is that once you get those first 3 steps down, anything can be an edible. Anything.
Sky's the limit.
You can infuse any food. And
really quick before we move on from the coffee.
Yes, tell us.
Okay, so have you recently seen, I'm not a big Keurig user for coffee. Like I used to have a Keurig machine, but I love like having a fresh pot in the morning, you know. I'm more than a 1-cup girl.
Yeah.
So, but there is a coffee brand out there now. I think it's called K-Cups. And I thought it's infused coffee. Have you tried it?
No.
Okay, first of all, I thought it was going to be really gimmicky and be like cheap coffee and you would taste the wheat. Like I just had no good expectation. I was blown away.
Really?
So good. I'm going to reach out to the owners and have them send you some.
Yes, send me some. I need some of this. But that speaks to the incredible innovation that we're seeing in this final edible category.
Great development.
There are a lot of really cool ways you can make these products infused. So then another example of this is a sweet potato gnocchi with a cannabis leaf pesto from Chef Teresa Hansen. Teresa Hansen has a company called High Vibes Kitchen out of Arizona, and she's a nutritionist-based chef. So here what she's doing is really interesting because she's making a regular gnocchi, which is great if you want to maybe share with people who don't want to consume. And then she's making a medicated pesto using an infused oil, but she's also using the raw leaf. So she's getting the THCA and the raw acid form cannabinoids from the leaf, and of course those are super nutritious. Right. So she's getting all of that good stuff, combining it with an infused oil, and then putting that on top of a non-infused dish. Of course she can infuse the gnocchi because there are lots of ways to do that, but to again keep it in the sauces, keep it in things that people can kind of dip in and out of, literally.
Right.
And then last, this is an infused no-grony by, well, that's me, Rachel Burkons. Altered Plates is another company of mine where we do culinary cannabis experiences. But what I'm trying to show you here is that you can make those alcohol-based extractions that will allow you to introduce cannabinoids into beverages very seamlessly. So I call this the no-grony because there's no alcohol in it. And I'm using a product called Sand Bitter. That's an alcohol-free Italian aperitif style thing, and you can really make something that feels, tastes, experiences like a Negroni without the alcohol. So alcohol-based tinctures, you could also, of course, use those alcohol-based tinctures to make a sugar and then put the sugar into a simple syrup. You can do all sorts of ways to make infused drinks at home. So we wanted to just kind of showcase that there's lots of options out there. If you're interested in making edibles, all you need to do is learn some of those basic infusion techniques. It's the same 3 steps. It's really the same 2 steps. You've got decarbing, some form of infusion, lots of ways to do that, and then just put it into your final product. Yep. All right, so what happens if you don't want to do all that? Because
I know.
I'm
just saying I don't. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot. Even those machines like the Levo, and there are a couple other. There's one called Ardent. There's one that's the Magic Butter machine. Even those machines where you put some flour in, you push a button, and you walk away, it still takes like 6 hours.
Yeah.
It can be a very time-consuming process.
The Magic Butter machine lives in my garage.
It's not used enough because it takes too long, probably.
It's exactly it. It takes too long. I don't want to clean it when it's done.
It takes too long.
I can just go to the store and buy a container. It's faster.
There we go. That's the beauty. There are so many phenomenal product choices out there if you're like, I'm not doing that. And so on that note, I have a couple of examples and we can kind of talk through how you might be able to integrate some of those categories. So tinctures and oils. Oil-based tinctures are actually one of my favorite infusion techniques. I'm a big fan of when I am making my own infusions, I tend to make oils over butter because oils you can really integrate super easily into anything. Like, I actually carry around purse tinctures. I call them my purse tinctures. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go, plop into something. So you can go buy a tincture and carry it around with you. If you have a tincture that you love and you're not drinking and you want to put it into your mocktail or put it into your Starbucks, you can 100% do that.
Yeah, it's nice and discreet. It's
discreet.
Precision dosing.
Yes.
You know exactly what you're going to get every single time. Repeatable expectation.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important, thank you for bringing that up, one of the most important pieces about why you might choose this rather than making your own infusions is even if you're going to follow all of the science, even if you're going to follow the recipe, even if you know the exact THC percentage of your flower that you're using for that infusion, there's still an element of human error. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in understanding what the dose is. So working with tested, finished products that are available in the marketplace is going to make sure that you always know exactly how much you're consuming. So this is another benefit to purchasing an edible, purchasing a tincture, purchasing an oil, and using that as the base of your infusion. It gives you just a lot more control and security over it.
It's usually a better bang for your buck, too, when you're doing tinctures versus picking up already infused products. Tinctures oftentimes have a lot more potency to them. They go a lot farther, and oftentimes, especially now, the marketplace is really fiercely competitive, and so you're finding these higher dose tinctures at a much more affordable price point. And when you match up the time that it takes and everything and getting all the ingredients together and the smell, because let's be honest, decarbing is not an odor-free process.
Right. It's stinky.
For real. It makes more sense. It's the same reason why we don't make our own butter at home every time we want want some butter on our toast. We go to the
you could. It's actually not that hard to make butter if you want an arm
If you want to come to my house and make me some butter, I'll welcome you, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. No, there's definitely an ease, a convenience factor to working with those types of products. And then, there are also just infused olive oils. Potley has a line of both hemp and cannabis olive oils that are really high quality, and that's really nice too because they go in everything.
What do you think about, actually one of my most favorite products that's out there right now is this product called My High. It's actually it's a powder.
Yep.
Right? It's odorless, tasteless, completely water soluble. It actually has a little bit of green coffee extract in it, so it has a nice little lift. One of the reasons why they would include that is because when you're utilizing cannabis infusion, oftentimes it makes you tired afterwards. And so the idea behind this particular product is that it's good for the morning. You put it in your beverage. It's not going to make you sleepy 2 hours later. And also, similarly, if you're to go out, partying, you want to have a social event, it's your opportunity to replace your alcohol with a cannabis product, and you get to avoid the hangover and still have the same social opportunity.
Totally. And that's just one of the many category types so we can explore as doing these things. I love My High too because it's in a swizzle stick. Yeah. It's extremely convenient. It's a wonderful product. So chocolates, this is something that obviously there's a lot of in cannabis.
So much.
There's so many infused chocolates. And again, that's because traditionally cannabinoids are fat soluble. So it's fairly easy to make an infused chocolate. But one of the things that I love to do, I am not myself a chef. I'm more of a culinary cannabis lady, whatever that means. But basically, I will take an infused chocolate and melt it in a double boiler and make dip strawberries. This is a bark that I made with candied flower petals on it. So there are a lot of different things you can do with chocolate, and it's really as simple as putting it into a double boiler and melting it, and then doing whatever you want with it. Or if you take a chocolate bar and you want to make chocolate chip cookies, chop it up. Chop up your chocolate bar, and then you have infused cookies. There are a lot of different ways you can work with chocolate. And then there are also some great condiments out there. This is one of my favorite emerging categories because I don't think it's really been touched as much as it should. We have honeys, we have oils, hot sauces, that brand
ketchup, peanut butter.
Yes, ketchup and salad dressings.
Salt, sugar.
Yep.
One of the things that gets me so excited about these, and is because there are everyday elements,
Yeah.
right? I am a huge edibles consumer. I'm an Emerald Cup edibles judge. I've been doing that for several years now. I joke and say I'm on a little mission to try everything that's ever been infused with weed,
obviously,
and other things. But for me, it's having those little options that come in individual servings. I can throw them in my purse. It's super discreet. It's super casual. And also, I love when I'm in a restaurant setting and I am able to pull out my own little whatever infusion and the waitress says, "What's that?" And I have this opportunity to talk about what it is, and it really opens up this beautiful dialogue. But the condiments, I think why we don't see a lot of them is just because accessibility is still an issue.
Well, they're hard
if
to make.
we had infused ketchup and infused barbecue sauce and all of that in a grocery store, they'd flourish.
They would.
But because we can only access them in a dispensary, it's incredibly challenging to see these very important and realistic daily use products be accessible to the general public.
Yeah, and I think as we see in general more consumption spaces open up where people can sit down and order some food and then not have the server be like, "What is that?" But they would actually bring you your infused ketchup and say, "Here, Manndie, eat those French fries."
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, that's very much the future. And this subcategory in particular, I think, is really a good fit for that type of use. And then another category that is kind of moving slowly, but one that I'm really excited by, is the savory edibles category. Right here is a pumpkin-shaped cheese ball that I made for Halloween using this brand called Sumo Snacks. They have a line of infused chips. They're like literally infused Cheetos, Doritos. Like,
I've tried their whole line and I'm addicted.
They're so good.
When we carry these at my delivery service here in Sacramento, Canagram, and I think we have every flavor, and almost every time I place an order, I get one of every bag.
They are super fun, and they actually have done some really interesting collabs. They did one with Snoop. They have Snoop O's that are like Funyuns, and then they just did a collab with Chef Roy Choi, and they have like a meaty ramen flavor.
Yeah, ramen flavor of some sort.
I haven't tried that one yet, but
I like the lime infused ones.
So good, so
Those
good.
are really delicious.
And so that's a really exciting thing to see. I think that category is a little dangerous because like you're gonna eat the whole bag.
Yeah, and it's hard. You have to really be mindful. You have to take out what portion you intend to eat and put the bag away.
Yeah.
But in the judging process, Emerald Cup actually distributes all of our judges' kits broken down by category. And under edibles, there's beverage, there's sweet, there's savory. And what we experience in the judging and then we had to have a totally separate category just for gummies because there was so many, a significant number of submissions. But when you look at the savory category, it's peanuts compared to all the sugar. And one of the most important things that I'm always telling people is when we're talking about cannabis as a wellness product, when we're talking about our health, we have to stop matching up this healthy product with a load of sugar because it's just completely defeating the purpose. I'm not saying to stop infusing, gummies or whatever. Lord knows that
not gonna happen.
I love them. But if we're seriously talking about a wellness line, we have to start talking about more products that are savory, that aren't loaded with a bunch of saturated fats and sugars and things like that. So
for sure,
if you're an edible creator, make savory, not sweet.
Yes, and there's also a couple of cracker brands out there, and
there is. Higher just put out a couple of crackers that have like a rosemary. I made a charcuterie board actually with their like rosemary crackers, and they have like some corn nuts and things.
Nice,
so good.
Well, so that's actually the perfect segue into the gummies and candy because as you see there, that's a just cheese board that I made that I added some edibles to because as Manndie was saying, there's a lot of gummies out there.
We need to hang out more, Rachel.
We're going to hang out. Don't worry. It's a good. We're going to make so many infused cheese boards. I can already tell that's a thing. But yeah, I think that this is a really fun way to not only just elevate the gummy so that it's not just something you pop and forget about. Let's turn this into an actual food moment. But this is something that's really personal and important to me, is the element of hospitality, because food is such a vehicle to share cannabis with people. So being able to present gummies and chocolates and crackers and chips and all of these things through that lens is such a fun way to bring people into edibles. And if you're working with pre-tested packaged products, you're not worried about accidentally overdosing your friends.
Yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing that people have been concerned about with edibles, is they had some prior experience with an edible that was way too heavy for them, or they didn't feel it working, so they took more, and next thing you know, you doubled down on your dose and it hit you way harder. So we've all had those experiences, and I think now you have less to be concerned about, because you just start low, go slow, take your time with it. If you don't feel high the first time, that's okay. You get to try again.
That's right. You may have to wait a couple of hours, but you do get to try again. One place where you won't need to wait a couple of hours is in the drinks category, which is really exciting and is really perfect for those of you who may be looking to figure out what your dose is. At least for beverages, you do need to understand, as if anyone caught the last talk with Diana from the Cannabis Beverage Association, we were talking about how with beverages, there's a more rapid onset. You'll feel the effects in as little as 5 minutes, really.
Yeah, it's similar to alcohol in
Much
the onset.
more like alcohol, yes. And also more similar to alcohol in the way you can stack them, because they have the more rapid onset and a shorter duration. You can kind of check in with yourself and you're like, am I cool to have another drink here?
The absorption rate has a lot to do with it. When you take an edible, you're eating like a concentrated gummy. That's one bite, or 10, 5 milligrams out, whatever that is. But when you're taking a drink, you're slowly sipping over time. So the body is slowly absorbing it over time. It's not just one big hit, quick hit. And so when you're taking it, the onset really does feel similar to alcohol.
And so
without the consequences.
Yeah, well, you're not going to have the hangover, which is definitely a big plus. And because there are so many different categories of cannabis beverages right now, you can really make anything you want. So here, this is a live resin infused de-alcoholized apple cider called Mollis.
It's so good.
It's phenomenally delicious. It actually was just named Best Cannabis Beverage by the High Spirits Awards, which we'll talk about.
I saw that a moment ago, and actually I told my partner Makai when it first came out, we were one of the first shops to carry it, and I told him, I was like, this one's going to win. This is going to win awards for sure.
It's a really great product, and one of the things that I love about it is that, yes, I can drink it, but here I made it into a granita. So you can really use any of these products that we just talked about as an ingredient into making something else. So let's say you do want to make a granita because it's really hot and you're looking for something infused, but you don't want to make an infused simple syrup. You don't want to go through all of those steps that we just talked about. You can literally just use a beverage, and there's a lot of different, look at these CBD slushies, you can really use these existing products to make something else. And I think that is the kind of like life hack for baked baking.
Yeah. And the other thing with beverages, they used to say that like cannabis topicals was really the most comfortable product to talk to somebody about when you're talking and introducing cannabis to an individual. But I think that now there's such a wide array of options in the beverage category. I actually feel like beverage is probably the most comfortable gateway, because if you have an individual who's not super confident or comfortable with cannabis but is a drinker, it's easy to get them to test the waters a little bit more.
Everyone drinks. We are all very accustomed to having multiple drinks.
Socially acceptable.
And if
to
you're
poison
looking,
yourself.
Well, if you're looking to drink less alcohol, people might not even notice. When cannabis beverages first came out, I would walk around parties with the Lagunitas Hi-Fi hops, it used to be in the exact same bottle as the Lagunitas IPA, and so people wouldn't even notice. And then after a little bit, they'd go, what are you drinking? And I'd be like, oh, you want one? And they'd be like, yeah.
Totally different. Surprise.
Surprise, it's weed. There's no alcohol in here. So, that's another really exciting thing about these cannabis beverages is you can not only get people to try cannabis with them, but you can do anything with them, really.
Yeah, I can't wait until we can get to a place in, the country, not just California, the world really, where you can walk into a bar and order a cannabis cocktail. It's mind-blowing to me that we have this knowledge of this as an option, right? And we're not allowed to access it in these places where social intoxication is like the expectation.
I mean, that's the purpose of the bar.
Yeah,
it's the neighborhood watering hole. And if anyone missed the last session, we were talking a little bit about Minnesota, where they are about to go legally recreational, but there's already a burgeoning hemp-derived THC market. In Minnesota, you can walk into a grocery store and buy a cannabis beverage. You can get it in a restaurant. You can get it in a bar. You can get it.
Let's go to Minnesota.
At a hair salon. Everyone go and book your trip now to Minneapolis, because that really is the future, where you can have that true hospitality-led experience with an infused beverage.
And there's a clear desire for people to have it. I mean, frankly, there's so many pop-up parties and so many different chefs that are creating these underground pop-up experiences because people want them.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is food and drink are really such a great vehicle for normalization. If you get food, if you care about food, if you care about drinks, it's really easy once you understand where cannabis fits into that. Where cannabis might fit into your life. If you're not somebody who's going to be like, I'm going to smoke weed every morning, you don't have to be. That's fine. Find the product set, find the form factor that works best for you, and you can incorporate that very easily into your life through food and beverage. And as we're showing here, beverage is just that vehicle. So whether you're going to make your own infused tinctures and then use that as a cocktail base or work with tested brands, there are lots of ways to do that. And then, of course, in terms of figuring out what brands to buy and how they're good, there's a lot of research you can do, but another option is, of course, to look at the award winners. Today we have all sorts of flower award winners here from the California Cannabis Awards, so definitely make sure to check out those products.
The people have spoken.
The people have spoken, but that's strictly a flower-based competition. I recently judged the High Spirits Awards. That's what we just mentioned that Mollis won Best Cannabis Beverage for. But we tasted cannabis beverages and hemp-derived beverages from across the country, and we looked at every category. There were coffees, there were RTD cocktails, there was a water that literally just tasted like water. It's amazing. It was an infused water. So it's really cool to see that there are these high quality products that are coming out across the country. So if you're interested in learning about what those products were, again, please visit thecleverroot.com for the full list of medal award winners. And some of those were also hemp derived, as I said, so they're available nationally. But it's pretty exciting. And then, of course, we have the Women's Canna Awards. Manndie, why don't you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, the Women's Canna Awards was founded last year. We actually had our very first showroom here, so thank you. We aim to honor the exemplary work being done by feminine leadership in the cannabis industry, and that is inclusive of a product competition. One of the things that I get the most excited about with cannabis beverage is that feminine leadership and executive roles are very strong in the beverage lane. And I want to just say that last year at our competition, we had 35 different women-owned brands submit their products, but the biggest category for submissions was beverage. And to me, that just shows that women especially are very enthusiastic and really wanting other options to alcohol. And this year, the Women's Canna Awards is going to be held on November 11th, right here in Sacramento at the Sophia Theater. And we will actually have an entire cannabis beverage tasting experience at the event. Visit womenscannaawards.com and sign up for our email newsletter because tickets for the event are going on sale and there's only 620 tickets available.
And also, you guys are going to be doing actual awards for women-owned edibles and cannabis
edibles, beverage, flower, concentrates. We are including hemp CBD products as well, as long as they're lab tested. But it's a very exciting competition. Never before have you seen all women-owned products going head-to-head with a series of very experienced, reputable judges. We also are very excited about the fact that with our product competition, we're doing something different than all of the product competitions out there. Every single women-owned brand that's participating in our competition is going to have the opportunity for their first place trophy. That first place trophy doesn't just come with a trophy in your Instagram photo. It comes with an entire executive suite package of all sorts of executive suite services like accounting support. You get tech support, marketing support, sales support for your team, but even better, you get at minimum, because our list is growing every day. Right now we're at 28 and counting dispensaries that have pledged to meet with all of our first place winners.
That's huge. That's really
28
exciting.
and counting. And our show's not till November, so we have more time. That list is going to continue to grow.
So if there's any female-owned brands listening, be sure to enter that.
Women'sCannaAwards.com.
But I think that, looking to what the medal award winners are, you mentioned you're also an Emerald Cup judge. That's one of the most long-standing.
Emerald Cup, actually, this year in 2024, we just had this year, so 2024 will be Emerald Cup's 20th Emerald Cup anniversary.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
going to be the biggest, baddest ever. It is probably going to be the most exciting event in California weed history.
That is,
mark my words. Outside of the Women's Canna Awards.
Oh, well, and outside of this here at the California State Fair. There's so much exciting stuff happening in this industry, and there's so many exciting opportunities for brands to showcase the really hard work they've all put in to building their products and building their brands. So it's nice to see that all pay off. I think that's pretty much it, unless anyone has any questions, or Manndie, if there's anything we didn't touch on.
Eat your weed.
Eat your weed, guys. Yeah. There are lots of ways to do it, and that's really what we want to make sure you understand and take home. It's never too late to learn about this. So if you're interested, please go to thecleverroot.com.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everybody.